Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Digimasters podcast. This week, we're actually talking to CXO Lab again, and also Keboola. The reason that I thought Keboola would be a great company to work with and to bring onto the podcast was because right now, when I've been building a lot of different types of automation, AI, and data analytics platforms, I've realized that the advice I've been given about which sort of architecture, which products, which tools has become quite confusing because the market just has a plethora of different choices. Now, that could be a very good thing, but it also means when I was totaling up, and I'll introduce my guests in a second, when I was totaling up the total cost of ownership to put my dream platform in place, when I looked at all the different licensing, and some were for compute, some were storage, some were depended on the number of cores you had on the cloud, it became quite an astronomical operational cost. And I felt that there needed to be something out there that could consolidate all these things together. So through my research and introductions via CXO Lab, I met Pavel, the CEO and co-founder of Keboola. Now, what hopefully we're going to find out today is, can Keboola as a data operations platform, or we'll find out even what a data operations platform is, be part of or the complete solution for my dilemma around how many actual tools I need to automate business processes, data operations, data cleansing, and integrate AI in a safe way into my marketing campaigns, my sales processes, etc. So let's find out. Thank you for bearing with me on a little longer introduction. As I said earlier, we have CXO Lab still with us, and I'll introduce Rob again. Rob Soltrees, the co-founder and CEO of CXO Lab. And Rob, do you want to give a brief introduction of what CXO Lab is again?
I can, for those who aren't listening for the second time round, in which case apologies for any kind of repetition. But yeah, we're a consultancy business, particularly really advisory boutique that help empower founders, even like Pavel, really achieve and reach their North Star, right? We utilize our fractional C-level experts to deliver very specific, bespoke, tailored solutions that help companies accelerate rapidly and hopefully avoid some of the speed bumps and pitfalls along the way.
Perfect. Thanks, Rob. And Pavel, sorry for the delay, but let's get round to introducing our main guest, our VIP, and that's Pavel, the also co-founder and CEO of Keboola. Welcome to the show. Let's jump straight into it. Yeah. Keboola. What is Keboola?
Hey, Adam and Rob. Thanks for inviting me. I really appreciate your time. So let's first start with what is Keboola. Are you interested in how the name start or what is Keboola? I will start with what we do, and then the story about the name maybe if we have more time. So as you said, like you, I've been building a couple of businesses before Keboola. We were trying to build actually one of the largest portal networks back in the day. Remember Yahoo and style Microsoft network. We did that across Europe. Then after that, I built two other businesses, and everywhere, all my businesses were really relying on data and MLs to automate processes. But everywhere, it was so hard to get the data. And I always had to have dozens of engineers to actually connect all the systems and get me the insights. And if I wanted to do it myself, even though I'm a bit technical, they would not allow me. And when I met with Peter, my co-founder, we have three co-founders, Peter, Mel, and they actually had an agency that was moving data to cloud for companies like Red Bull, for example. And they were very good backend engineers, and they, like some of their clients, started to ask them for data solutions, what we would call today to build a data platform. And they were very lazy, and it was not their core business. So they created this bunch of scripts that actually automated that. And I was working through one of my angel investments, I was working for a large bank in Europe. And the CIO asked me, hey, I would like you to not only bring me the cloud, show me how better it is, how better people actually work together. I have these projects with hundreds of people, different locations, and I don't know if they are profitable or not. So what I want you to do, I want to connect the data from Oracle database, Zebo, Google Calendars, and a couple of like Excel files, and tell me
So
no.
you had
I was like, yeah, dude, no.
a stakeholder that had realized that cloud isn't just about making it cheaper, because I think we've all found out that cloud isn't necessarily cheaper than on-premise. Actually gave you a complex use case that was value-based instead of just how much can you save me from my infrastructure costs. Oh, amazing.
And he wanted to know the effects of adopting cloud, right? So I was like, hey, dude, no problem. Like, done that before in all of my companies. Give me 20 people and we'll build you a system like that within a year. And he just laughed me out of his office. He was like, you're so cool. Like, you come here and say that the cloud way is the better way. And then you can do a proposal like you would be IBM, right? Or Accenture, for that matter, Adam. And I'll give you 3 months and $3,000. And I was like, well, challenge accepted. I was like, hey, it's 2015. Like, there has to be something. Cloud has been around for 8 years or whatever, right?
To integrate all those different platforms. And you said, okay.
I like challenge. What can I say? Back then, I was not literally doing anything because I sold my last business and I've been just investing like as an angel and helping my startups. And I was like, hey, finally something challenging. And hey, I know this. I've done this so many times before, right? And I was like, hey, times have changed. So I went to my Silicon Valley network. I searched through all databases. I went to Israel. I just couldn't find anything. And I got frustrated. And somebody recommended me to speak to Peter, now my co-founder. And I was like, hey, yeah, but they are just an agency. They don't. I was like, yeah, speak to him. He's literally smart. He might know this, right? So I invited him into our office. And there he sat and was like, hey, I have this problem. Like, this bank has this problem and they need to connect to Oracle. Hey, no problem. I was like, okay. And then I was like, hey, but also they need to connect to Google Calendar through API. He said, yeah, that's not an issue. I was like, dude, I've seen this movie before. So nothing is a problem. But I was literally out of options. So I just signed an NDA. I shared the accesses to him because I had a instance of that. And then 6 hours later, I was browsing through the internet. It was around midnight, and I checked my emails, and there was a link, and he said, "Hey, it's done." And I was like, "What do you mean it's done?" He was like, "Yeah, here's that access to visualization to good data, and you can look it there." And it's logged into goodData.com, and there were all these dashboards, literally populated with data, aggregated. I could filter name of the projects, all the data, look for if people actually are together, are they more productive on the project,
So
which
that
is
was
similar to this project or not, right?
So that was from Oracle ERP.
And I was like,
combined.
Yeah, that was from Oracle, that was from Google Calendar, and some CSVs.
Back in 2015, you brought all this information together and already produced dashboards, etc.
Yeah. And I was like, how did you do it? I was like, I'm using this visualization tool, good data. I'm like, I don't care about visualization. How did you put it all together? It was like, yeah, we have this interlude tool that we built. I was like, shoot, I need to understand more. So next morning, 9 a.m., I actually came to their office. I sat actually under the stairs, like these ones in my home. And I never left. For next year and a half, we were really trying to understand where is the future going to go? What is gonna be done? And we came up with this hypothesis that we saw that, we are in one of those unbundling cycles, right? You've been around IT long enough, so it's bundling, unbundling, right? There's an S-curve of adoption. And so we saw that old systems, thanks to driving force of cloud, old systems like Oracle, systems, are actually being unbundled by cloud systems like Snowflake. And there's going to be a lot of new things. So we came up with all the business processes are going to be algorithm driven. And we're like, hey, this has already happened in stock trading. This has happened in advertising, in RTB. And more the cloud is going to be penetrating normal businesses.
So
It's going to be
from
happening
my
everywhere.
perspective,
Bam.
when I'm doing diligence work, especially focusing on the digital diligence for mergers and acquisitions and doing a review of somebody's digital transformation, they have digitized, as in they've got Oracle, they've got SAP, they've got Dynamics, etc. But they are creating data because they're going obviously through an interface and adding new customers and things like that. But there always is a person moving the data, or there's an ETL, extract, transform, load process, moving data around. But very rarely do you see the actual business process completely converted and automated. So is that the gap you saw, which was a case of there are digital systems out there, people move data into data warehouses, and then people move data into reports and Excel and do lots of manual entry. But the whole culture hasn't changed to true automation. So you can actually realize the benefit of what was written in that business case for that digital transformation. That's the gap I'm hearing.
Yes. That's one of the gaps, exactly. There's a third part, and that's the growth of the data being created with all the SaaS applications and now AI. So if you combine these three forces together, it's a perfect storm. Check what's next. And in order to actually really, you put it very nicely, in all of those digitalization programs that were written by big companies consulting, like they know what to do. It's quite straightforward. Not to mention, but how to do it, that is very hard. And like, it's very similar situation nowadays. It's like most of the enterprises have been around for many decades, right? So they would have old mainframes sometimes, then they would have like 80s stuff, then they would have 90s data warehouses, then they would have data lakes and Hadoops. And then around that, all of the modern data stack and streaming, and some part would have Databricks, some Snowflake, some would have Salesforce, and Salesforce would say that they do everything, but it doesn't really connect here. And I want to just create my customer journey to understand who comes to my retail shop and who clicks on my advertising, and how can I target them a personalized thing, like personalized. And I have to call my DevOps, like we call admins DevOps now because we still have to call them. So DevOps works a little bit differently in data than it works in actual software engineering. And I have to wait.
Rob, from your experience, obviously looking at the skills market over the last 24 years, when data science became quite a very popular role, what we did with data scientists, and I put my hands up, and I think all my peers should put their hands up and say, including the recruitment industry, we did it badly, as in all of a sudden these people coming out of university with data science degrees, we stuck them in labs, in inverted commas, and said, play with the data. And they played with the data, and we got the business case to hire all these graduates with very big salaries because everybody's very excited about data science and the revenue or new products could bring in, or the operational savings they could bring in. But we didn't really realize that because nobody knew how to operationalize what they did. Yes, they built this great Python routine or statistical model in R, but IT went, what's this? So from my perspective, what Pavel's talking about is they came at this the other way around. Instead of getting all the clever people together to do the data science and the magic, they said, if people are doing the magic, how are they actually going to realize that? How is the automation going to work? And if IT doesn't understand Python because they're all .NET, how's it going to work? And if you need data and it needs to be clean to actually realize, how's it going to work? Obviously, I'm putting words in your mouth, Pavel, but that's what I'm hearing.
You were talking about they were hiring these young data scientists to be the magicians. They weren't magicians. They hadn't done it before, nor did they have the tricks they'd learned already in order to go and be a magician. Now, if we take this back into this world, we're talking about the data. Pavel was talking about all these different people, all these different siloed pieces of information, but manual people stuck in the middle, just like a conductor operating different levels of train tracks and moving people around. What Pavel had was the information and a problem and a real case study to go and fix, which people clearly hadn't looked at before, and then was able to, with your colleague, actually build something that was enabler. Really what you are doing is enable people and organizations to understand what data they truly have, where is it, how to access it. When you've got that, then you can create everything, and then the kind of magic happens. If I look back in 20, 25 years ago when I was looking at this field, it was all around ETL. That was everything that we were helping companies hire for. This was big banks, insurance companies. They're all looking at
So you were hiring
piece.
plumbers.
Exactly. So we were hiring people. Yeah,
Important.
but absolutely. They
It's
were
important
putting
to have good
together
plumbing, right?
the data blocks to segment it into certain places that then made it accessible, because then you could move it. And that kind of was the point. Then you got the BI piece. Then that phase came afterwards. And then that was the interesting phase in their mind around, look at the reporting that we can present you. But it was only on a certain layer and quantity of data and quality of data that was available. But that felt like the next layer. Then we had the data science phase. And as you say rightly, no one had ever really done it. So what did they do? They hired people on 45, 55K straight out of university. And the rest, yes. To be fair, I do remember telling some younger people and people at university, get into this space because it's going to be one of the next big things. And it's a good earning potential. It's a great place to be go, because data will be key. It's going to be the next oil. It's going to be the next gold. Sure enough, Pavel then has seen it through that point where it really started to, I think, hit the meteoric rise button. Probably at the same time, if you were doing what you're doing, was when Blue Prism and all the other big RPA companies started to really take off and receive their obscene amounts of funding to do relatively simple repeated tasks, but without necessarily, again, the enablement to have the access to the data.
Yeah. There's so much to unfold.
So much information you gave us. It seems so obvious with hindsight. And from my perspective, back in 2015, I was still a solution architect. One of these people that were given the problems by the big banks or telcos, etc. And you were looking at, I need an informatica to move all this data around. Then I might need a messaging system in EBS, or I said that right, or ESB, I can't remember which route. Enterprise Serial Bus? Enterprise Bus, yes. So let's say MuleSoft or Tibco. And then I needed a data warehouse, and it might have been still an on-premise behemoth. Teradata, that was a perfect one. Yes, Teradata at Vodafone. And then we were then moving things into the cloud, but it was Redshift, and then eventually Google BigQuery, and then we've got the visualization tools. Is it Qlik? Is it Tableau, etc.? And and then we had the streaming starting to come in, like Kinesis, and obviously different types of Lambda architecture. But there were so many different components, as I said at the beginning of this episode. And now, I still do quite a bit of solution architecture. That's why I'm having this conversation. So I use Keboola to do my ELT or ETL, moving the data around. I can actually do some data catalog work within Keboola. I can push it out to, I'm hopefully not any spoilers, but I'm hearing this, to a marketing CDP engine, get the information back. Then I can actually send it to ChatGPT to do some work and then bring it all back. And I can actually produce data that's for the business to use in their own self-service. So if they wanted to go to any of these new RPA tools themselves, you can use Keboola to make sure that this is safe data sets. We've already got rid of all the PI data and confidential information. So you're sitting yourself right in the heart of the architecture. Does that make sense? Is that right?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I think we can now spend hours and hours to what Rob was saying. To what you are saying, Adam, it's about integrating things together, putting like a layer, abstract layer on top of existing infrastructure. Because as we identified, right, in the enterprises, you have layers and layers of old architecture which doesn't work together. So what we did, we created an operating system, if you will, like you have in your PC that can operate different parts of the infrastructure inside a PC without the user actually having to connect directly to the hard drive or allocate memory. And we can bring this experience to data stacks or data platforms. And that means that you can actually add different kind of infrastructure underneath us and the process is still running. But what it also means is that the integration of that together is important. But what is important also is governance. As you rightly pointed out, like once you prepare this, you need to give it in a governed workspace on one click through, let's say, Active Directory access to marketing department or personalization department as a data product, right? So they can, about not only the data set, but the whole product, all the ETLs, all the orchestrations, all the machine learnings, like everything, right? And they need to be able to click, have one workspace where they can modify, reuse it a little bit, still governed, so security knows exactly what is going on, and then reuse it somewhere.
My internal CISO,
built
Chief
on the
Information
work.
Security Officer brain's going, okay, so we're expecting more regulation to come out around AI. We've got to prove that the model is transparent. So anybody that's wants to do this, they need the full lineage. I'm also going to be a bit controversial and say something.
Yes.
If you're a CIO, CTO, or even a CFO that's approved all the spend on these other tools, you can still save face because it's not a case of ripping out and breaking all these deals and people going, why did you spend all that money on the infrastructure? You are a layer that can be brought in under different guises, all valid ones, such as security, such as optimization, such as transparency, such as being able to not just move data, but actually execute workflows. So that's a message I would give to my peers, saying that, yes, you might have these contracts in place. You don't have to rip out Snowflake. It's not a new database. You don't have to rip out Snowplow if you're using streaming. This all works, and you're the semantic layer. As you said, I like that analogy, operating system, holding it all together and coordinating it and putting that transparency lens on top of the existing architecture. And if you're a startup or scale up and you don't have all this legacy, then you can start straight with Keboola. Okay, perfect. Right?
It's exactly.
I was just thinking about my journey focusing on visual analytics and running different visualization companies. Adoption was either really easy, really hard, because adoption was, oh, it's very shiny and we love this drag and drop and we've been looking for an app feeling around our insight. But sometimes the UI and UX was very specific to a person or a team. So some people loved it, a lot of people could hate it. And it was very hard to bring in that sort of design from, let's say, Apple, that is supposed to be intuitive to as many people as possible when you're actually building a dashboard or an analytics app. And what you're talking about makes a lot of sense to me, because I'm thinking about, you're not trying to be the shiny front end and beauty's in the eye of the beholder. You're practical. Do you want this type of data? Do you want it cleansed? Do you want that extra insight added from an LLM, a ChatGPT, and you want to know it's safe and you can go and play with it? Oh, and who in the company doesn't want that? So your adoption should be very high. But my question is, who was your sponsor in the bank to get that sort of level of adoption so quickly?
Sponsorship. Actually, in the Digimasters bank, our sponsor was we were working under the CIO and the person who was responsible for data tribe platforms. Like that's that. And always, honestly, our experiences were when you want to change the company, really change, not just have another tool, you need to have a C-level alignment. And not only, oh, let's do it, but shoot, I am so frustrated. It hasn't been done for the last 5 years. Now I want data to be sitting under me, like with the board and actually working with the board. And I want to be part of it, right? And then it's not only about technology, it's about the change management.
One of the things I want to speak about is not just yet, but why did you to go in as pretty much what I would call a low code or no code platform? So when I'm using Keboola, I'm building these routines and I don't need to learn any code. So it's very intuitive. It's almost like you aimed it at the business instead of technology people. But before we get onto that, I think Rob and I were talking earlier, and we're quite interested to know if there were any issues or challenges that Keboola went through on its journey from advising companies, building an internal product, and then realizing, ooh, maybe the internal product is the product. So how did you make that decision? And has anything that you could share gone wrong, and any lessons learned, especially for other people out there that are on their startup scale-up journey?
Okay, thanks. That's a very good question. When I joined, guys, in 2015, Keboola was consulting agency, like for movements to cloud. You have to understand the consulting business was pretty sizable. It was, I don't know, $1 million back then or something like that. Not bad. It was growing by its own. But through my angel investments prior to this, I've seen that there isn't always a problem between in the companies that want to do both, right? Because like dynamics of service business are totally different than dynamics of product or platform business. And I believe starting a product from consultancy is a great way to start because you understand the problems, right? You are like, you know why you did it because you were so fed up with, right? So you have a burning problem. Second, if you can connect it to the strategical framework and form a hypothesis where it's going to go,
you've got to think about, are you just creating a product because you like it and hopefully building it and somebody will come and buy it?
Yes.
But because you're a consultancy, you knew the problems, you knew it was out there, you put yourself in your existing customers' shoes, and that's how you defined what Keboola's product was going to be.
Yeah, we were in the beginning, like as you have these, like timesheets from Paymo, we would actually put Keboola as another worker, as another programmer. So we would literally bill Keboola time as if it would be a software engineer as well, right? But then it was like we started to see that if you grow the consultancy business, it's very hard to say no to that money because it's so addictive, right? It's just every month, you're gonna get
it's
this
money because you just look at
that,
the utilization and the chargeable. Can you charge this person out? And you obviously make a profit on the person. A product business it's all upfront costs. It's huge risk.
And was that a tricky pivot, both from changing the business from people to a solution and from a mindset from you as founders and then the employees? Because that is, and it wasn't a planned one, was it? So you got to an inflection point to say, hey guys, where are we going?
When I joined, when I started to work with the guys for a year and something, I really wanted to understand if it has a potential. I didn't want to do another service business. Been there, done that. It's great. No, I just didn't want to do. So in like a year and a half, I was like, hey guys, we need to decide, right? It's a great consultancy business. If you're going to use this tool as your internal tool, you're going to go and grow to 10, 15 million in consultancy. It's going to be great, right? Just not of an interest to me because I believe that what we have here has a potential to actually change the world and change how people actually work with data because all of these, let's do digital first, it ain't going to happen if people in business are not going to be involved and we have a potential to change it. And so the decision was easy. It was surprisingly easy. My partners are very smart. So like they saw it. What was hard was to implement it, right? Because like we literally went from 97% service, right? And we said, okay, let's do this. And for the first year and a half, after we look back at the year, we're like, so we got into 90% of service and 10% of software. That's not moving the needle. Like everybody wanted that. But to change, like practically, it was hard. So we had to go the other way. And we like really hard. We just pushed the services out. We gave them to our partners. And we said, okay, now we're going to bet all in on the
product business.
So we went from 90%.
Instead of trying to convert the services business, you did a trial run, you saw things out there, you were still very much focused on services, and then you span it out and split it. And Keboola went the other.
Yeah, maybe I can go in details, but there was a lot of service around, exactly building the overall implementations of data strategies and dashboards and everything, like helping companies. So we said, okay, so we had 2-3 partners, and we said, okay, like we want you to do this. We will give you this business, and let's talk what the license for Keboola should look like. And we want to focus on the product so we can better service you. And it was very painful for the first year and a half. And we wanted to do it on our own. We didn't want to take any external investment because 2 things. First, we needed to go through this transition. And second, we knew that we are a year or 2 years maybe ahead of the market. Because you remember back then, 2018, 19, 20, everybody was like, oh, just have this one tool and it's going to sell this. Bring this one tool to the already like very complex thing and it's just going to solve this one thing and it's going to be perfect. And so we knew we had to wait until this was unbearable, right? Until people were like, shoot, now I have 30 different tools. My business users don't really use it. It became so spaghetti. And my C-level is asking me, so where is the transition? And so not thanks, but due to COVID and the digitalization, like really speeding up COVID, this came and started to like really nicely take off, and we started to go bigger and bigger enterprises. So we took a first round of financing actually in 2022, the angel investment, and it was from our network of actually people who used Keboola to build their businesses, like Thomas Chuper and Raleigh Group. It's an almost $2 billion business all around from Keboola in 4 countries. In Europe, they deliver food, like 20,000 SKUs within 2 hours. And they have 0 people for data platform operating. They don't have them. They don't have data DevOps people. They don't have platform people. They have Keboola. It's a automation of how you run data platforms and recurrently operating system. The same situation as was in we talked about this before, as was in the analogy like when the telephone came out, people have these huge switchboards, right? They were done manually. You had to call their switchboard. There was some young female usually which would switch it manually. And then after 10 or 20 years, there was 250,000 plus minus women actually working at switchboards in the US. And there was news articles that if everybody's going to adopt telephones, there's not going to be enough women to work in the switchboards as operators. And it's just kind of like similar situation to data stacks now. You have to call DevOps and they have to manually put things together. And it was suddenly changed via AT&T in the switchboard industry. They automate. And now we don't have to have somebody sitting and switching 2 cables together.
I might not be old enough to completely remember in the 1920s, but the way I think about it is the bottleneck you talked about earlier, when people in business are saying, "Why is this so hard? Why can't we do it?" And I'm just thinking about the data is that bottleneck, and as a chief data officer, we are always seeing, why can't you just give us the data, or why isn't the data ready? And we go back and say, it's because you're giving it to us in a very poor state, because you're creating sales data and customer data in a terrible way, and it's problem. And then IT says, no, it's the business problem. And because everything is people in there, and the more people touching it and breaking it, the downstream impact is it gets slower, and there's just not enough people knowing what they're doing. But if it was automated end to end, there was business processes were written down, and the solutions, the software, the digital platforms were all checking all the data, only letting you input things and removing human error as much as possible. Then us in the data teams could be giving you data sets for you to enable all these exciting processes. So yes, I'm going to borrow that if that's okay. The original telephone operators and how they were plugging in all the different jacks, and then when that got automated, that was when telco can actually scale. Thank you for that.
From a perspective of growth in the times that we've talked about with COVID and everything happening and kind of people being locked in, but how did you, and I go back to that word, which relates to something you're going to talk about later on. So enabling and empowering both your internal culture and then the adopters of the technology that you were selling to your customers for them to use it too. How did that work?
When we started, like around 16, 17, we like really focus more on the product. We need to hire more developers and more people to work with apps and stuff. And we set a couple of like truths for us. We said we don't want to turn it into another Oracle. And not in the science, like, yeah, awesome, right? But in the way, we said, look, we want to, couple of principles. Hey, we want to be, for our clients, always to have easy migration path, right? So one of the things that we embedded into the architecture of the system is an API where you can actually take out the data with just one API call. All the data, all the transformations, everything, you can just take somewhere, right?
As in you don't proprietary data structure.
No
what you
lock-ins,
put into
yes.
Keboola, it's very easy to take out, so you're not locked in. Got it.
Yes. Yeah. Because we as a running tech companies or tech divisions, we hated that always with our vendor, right? Second, was like as much as possible, the code should be open source on the course, not on the core, but on the outside, kind of, right? If you look in GitHub/Keboola, over 90% of our code is actually open source. Part of our culture was like, no bullshit. We also wanted to have kind of like whole personalities, people who are not only work, but also have personal lives. Because like we believe it's important. If you are only work, then you're going to burn out.
That's easy to say. So what did
so
you
do
within Keboola to make that easier?
When we started, we were looking for people who have their hobbies. So a lot of people were, for example, mountain bikers, but like extreme mountain bikers. They would move to our office in Vancouver so they could be mountain biking. So they were some of the best software engineers ever because they had a passion for what we do, but they also wanted to desperately get out in the wild and do some biking. We've been doing these 360s, right? And actually my 360 is available for anyone to comment on and give me feedback. Oh yeah, I get very harsh feedback. Yeah. And I love it. It gives me an opportunity to like actually go and reach out to the person and, hey, what did you mean by this?
You almost look for, when we've talked to you about this, and Adam and I talked about it in our podcast the other week, around the fractional career and people with multiple things that they do, multiple hobbies. They enjoy going and doing many different things. That often allows them to bring far more sort of intensity and capacity to their actual work. So rather than just focusing on work and thinking that is the best way of doing it, actually it's the complete opposite these days. And really you want to do that. Plus you're giving them the freedom to have an opinion, to grow. And that's the right thing, right? That is culture in itself, right? And culture is no one thing. It's the people you employ and what you empower them to do. And if they can all feel like they've got a voice and be heard and have an impact, which, let's be honest, everyone wants to do, particularly the new generation coming through now, it's their biggest thing, is I want my voice to be listened to, and I'm bright, which is why you've hired me. And I've said, I don't think this is a great idea. What can we do about it? Here's a suggestion. And those are probably the biggest things that you want to do. And it's interesting you mentioned it. I actually had my own 360 only a couple of weeks ago with Nico, my business partner. And again, it was actually a very rewarding thing to do. It was really helped crystallize a few things. It brought a few things to the fore, really allowed you to understand where all of your true kind of powers are and actually how to keep building upon them, which is good for the business and good for your own career, but also the areas where you may have gaps or things you may not even spot that you can then actually tweak and tune to.
Yeah, is Nick?
We have blindside, right?
He's French, but he lives in Holland.
Because I'm about to say, having a Dutch person give you 360 feedback, quite an experience, isn't it?
It's a double whammy, as he jokes. So he's French mentality with the Dutch mentality mixed together. So again, very honest.
Are you okay?
I'm fine. It actually was a quite exhilarating and liberating thing, like genuinely. And I went away from it and making notes and looking at things, and it was good for both of us. I gave him the same thing in return, and actually we both left within that kind of last week going, right, it's a great way to do things.
And Pavel, they're still not talking to each other.
It's only been 2 weeks. It's okay.
It's full now. It's developing. That's a break. We call it a restful period. And how do you see that sort of transitioning? I know this is something that Adam and I wanted to talk about. Obviously now launching you did very well. That huge, great, fantastic round, which was phenomenal. We'll let you talk about that. That's now allowing you to develop into the UK and open the London office. That's like another challenge, right? In a good way, is how to do it, how to build it successfully, and then how to try and keep that mantra and culture going without necessarily being there day to day.
Yes.
So how do you see that panning out?
It's kind of like our third iterate or layer, like where we need to reinvent ourselves again, right? As you grow the company, you need to kind of keep reinventing yourself. What we are the most worried is kind of like how not to lose the spirit of Keboola, in the process. And we're hiring close to 100 people in the next 12 months. And so it's very hard. So here are a couple of our things that we've been really focusing on. And I would love to know the comments, like maybe in comment sections, people might have experiences, how to do it better. Couple of things. So first, year and a half ago, we really structured our hiring process. So we wanted to first go like with top grading methodology, but top grading is very hard. And I talked to a lot of people. It's so hard when people don't actually do it. It's one of those things that it sounds very nice, like when you logically perfect.
That's a lot like find that companies say they're doing agile and then no, you're not. And you're forcing agile methodology on a process that really shouldn't be agile, but it's very, yes. Sorry, carry on.
Agile, yes. We actually learned that the son of the guy who wrote top grading is doing glue methodology. And it's a simplified version of top grading. The process is actually has six stages, and the last one, like in between, there is a meeting with the team. The last one is through interview, which takes 3 hours. And we really invested into this. It's very intense. Like you have to involve 2 people full time throughout the whole process, and then you have a team of people that needs to spend 1 to 2 hours with the candidate. So every candidate you spend with them 10 hours, maybe, like throughout the process. And that looks like for us, right? And which people will struggle if they join us. And we actually decreased the number of non-fitting hires. Like we decreased that to something like below 10%. And that's really good. But now we need to scale it, right? So we need to keep the system. Second, how we can did it. We've been working with Oli Krebs, our CRO, for a year and a half now. First year we worked together on a consulting basis. So we got to know each other. We really made sure that it's not only about skills, but it's also about culture, like dimension. And when we decided to hire for London, Oli is like a central figure, right? He understands, he knows we are very well synced together how to do things, and we can build around him. Third point is with the first batch of first 20 people, we actually spend a lot of time together. So we bring them a lot to Czech. We had an offsite in late November in mountains in Czech where we brought over 100 people and all the new people that were just about to join. Our offsites are a little bit different than most companies. Because most companies in my experience, they mistake offsites for company conferences. So company conferences is the brainwashing, right? But literally the content of the offsite is done by team. So we have on Confluence page, we have everybody who wants to talk about something, everybody who wants to run a workshop. It's like a conference, right? Because like when we did the first one 2 years ago, our people team from US back then was like, how can you do that? We need to put together the agenda. I'm like, hey guys, we spent so much time trying to hire the best people ever. And then we don't even trust them to put the agenda for offsite. Because like we think we know better than them what they need to talk about, right? So it's never gonna work, right? So it works perfectly. Everybody who wants to talk about a topic, lists the topic in Confluence or describes the outcomes, describes who they would like. Then there is a voting process. X topics will get voted, actually get a time and space, and people can sign up for them. And then actually they have to present the results of the workshop, and it needs to be done.
It's the word empower. So I wonder if you could tell a bit about this series of events called Empower and why the UK second event.
2 years ago, when we were like, hey, we should do some event for our users. They are asking after Corona to get back together, and not only hackathons, those are great, but they are just for some part of the groups, right? And by the way, it goes to your question, Anna, with no code. But we don't have only no code. You can actually use CLI, and you can do everything in a part of your CI/CD pipeline, because it's about collaboration between tech people and business people. But that's and we said, like, our users actually asked to meet with us, see what's new, do some workshops, how they can implement things, talk to other customers, right? And we're like, hey, how should we call it? And we did, and we asked around the company, and Pavel Doležal, a guy from product, he came with, hey, we are all about empowering people, empowering normal people with just common sense in the business and some technical skills to be data heroes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we do every day. You take a person who has common skills and some little bit of knowledge. We teach them a couple of SQL queries, and within 3 days, they do wonders. So that's how we should call it. We should call our series of events for our clients, with our client, Empower, because we are literally about empowering people. We decided to actually do London Empower as well. We did a practice run in Prague, and it's going to be in February. Everybody is invited. I think it's going to be a very pleasant experience how to actually talk to other people from the industry, talk to our clients. There's going to be a lot of clients showing use cases, also see firsthand what is Keboola about, maybe actually do something on site, come out with some problems being solved, being empowered. And yes, there's going to be some sneak peek into our AI initiatives as well. There is Adam, you said it nicely, when you come in more and more with the AI things, and you need more governance, full image. And we've been working on something, how to use LLMs, not only as a UX, how to access them, but how to use their true power. And that true power is to understand complex systems, right? So we've been using them to understand the lineage and governance of everything that is inside Keboola. So you can then ask them, who built this data set? What is an impact if I change the SQL code here? What is this metric and where is it being used? So all of that we're going to be showing them. I think it's going to be
telling us
awesome.
That NLP, natural language, will be part of Keboola. So you can ask Keboola about the lineage, as you said, and it'll respond to you in natural language instead of having to hunt through log files. Yep. Really? Very clever. I haven't seen that yet. Anybody else do that? Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So you're going to be building, obviously, LLMs based on the data created by Keboola at your, obviously, different client sites. Interesting.
Yeah. You have to remember, as an operating system, we have all the metadata, right? Because they go through our API layer. So we are able to actually use LLMs to create a knowledge graph of what is going on. And then you can query it in natural language. And it is, it's really nice. Yeah, we did a sneak peek a couple months ago that we are working on that. And I hope that we're going to be actually able to demonstrate that on some production
so
projects
that's the Empower event on the 28th of February, 2024, just in case anybody's listening to this podcast in the year 2032 and gets excited. You never know with a podcast or a YouTube video when somebody watches it and they go, oh, that sounds great, I'll sign up. And you realize that's from 2019. Yeah, I'll put a registration link in the description of this podcast and also on LinkedIn. And I'm sure obviously if you look for Keboola LinkedIn page and website, you'll be able to find it as well. But I'll tag it in the bottom of this episode.
I was just in my head when the scenario when you would be listening in 60s to Minsky, where he was talking about the neurons, he called them differently. And you're like, oh, this is so exciting, we should do something. And then you go to ChatGPT.
I think we've got so many different stories, and we've been at least recording for, I think, an hour and a half at the moment. So it's going to be fun editing this down to an hour episode, and I don't know what I'll cut. And we've got so many other notes that we could go about, but we've ticked off, obviously, I understand a bit more about the company. Rob discussed with you about the culture of the company, and then obviously the people that are listening to this that want to understand how to do a startup and scale up. There's some interesting elements there. But obviously from a data operations perspective, I'm very excited because our other sister podcast, the Digimasters Shorts, which is the daily podcast, that uses a lot of automation. In fact, it's 90% automated. And I'm using lots of different tools, etc. But the heart of it is automation platform. And I've started to rebuild some of it on Keboola because the limitations I had on tools like Zapier and Make.com was they are good for small companies, but when I wanted to integrate into my architecture for large enterprise or private equity with a lot of data, they don't have the right connectors. They don't have that support model for large transactions and business ready. It's fine for a startup and playing around, but I can't actually implement it, even with the CISO constraints and SOC 2 compliance and choosing which VPC and put it on. I didn't have that option because it's purely only SaaS, a lot of them. But with Keboola, you can bring it into your own VPC. It can be fully SaaS, etc. So that's why for my network, being able to scale it to medium, large enterprise and portfolio companies, it made a lot more sense for me to migrate off these purely SaaS options onto Keboola. So hopefully I'll get to talk about that maybe at the event because I'm coming along. And you've asked me to speak about something. So maybe I'll be talking about Digimasters Shorts powered by Keboola. That'll be exciting.
That would be actually exciting because that you can then take what you've built and turn it into a template and register a template to our marketplace. There's over 400 developers that have registered something to our marketplace. So all of the components in Keboola, most of them are by third party.
I'll be creating competition for my own podcast by selling a template and how to generate podcasts.
It's another revenue.
You gotta be multiplying yourself.
Don't worry, you just got to look at it with a different lens. It's how you can build through CXO Lab, Digimasters. You can build your own AI-powered podcast series.
Yeah, I'm going to do an actual episode on the Digimasters podcast, this podcast channel, because it's long form, talking about how we built Digimasters Shorts and the decision we went through. And obviously that's going to be marketing and technology, but at the core of it, it is how do you do daily podcasts? Because there's a lot of effort that goes into it. And you have to do it with automation unless you've got zero else happening in your life. Otherwise, you'll be continuously producing podcasts and marketing them and doing nothing else if you're going to do something daily. That's my opinion anyway.
Adam, you don't even know how big of a theme this is for me because I've been backed a film company for years that I should be publishing more. And I understand in this day and age, it's part of the CEO job, right? I think. I don't like to, I'm not it doesn't come natural to me. I like theater or small audiences, but doing something publicly on LinkedIn doesn't come naturally. But I also understand that every time I do some piece of content, which actually has some audience, that it's helpful for the company. So I actually was like, I need to automate this because otherwise I can't do it. So that's another conversation.
And always keep the human in the loop, mainly because the nerd in me likes to see what DALL-E is going to generate as a thumbnail. The creativity side, I'm going, how did it come up with that photo? And sometimes I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. And other times I'm like, that is genius. So it's always exciting, even though it's automated, for me to see what's going on. And if I hadn't automated it and built it all myself, there'd be no excitement. So every morning I get to see what has the robot developed and generate to summarize the podcast episode I've created the day before that goes live every day at 6 a.m. So I get that excitement as well as the automation, and now I'm the producer of the podcast in the first place. So I'm looking forward to sharing my lessons learned around scaling Gen AI and automation even through my own projects within Digimasters, let alone with my clients, etc. But we're going to have to finish this episode at some point because I don't know about you, but I'm getting very hungry. And I think you're in the UK time zone at the moment, aren't you?
I'm in Spain and Canary Islands in Tenerife. I actually promised my kids I'm going to take them for the Indian food tonight.
I'm going to have Indian for dinner, and I can't because I got something incredibly healthy, and I've also got to go for a run. So these don't really quite equate to your eating.
Can I not talk you in, Rob? Can I say,
No.
do you not want to nip out for a quick
Sorry.
curry?
No, this seems to be a theme. We do a podcast and I go for a run. So I'm going to stick to tradition and I'm going to go for a run.
But you can have some Indian food and then you can go for a run.
Pavel, when you're in the UK in a few weeks, we will go out and there's a particular place we should go to. So we'll do that and we can meet up. But agree, yes, we probably should finish this one. Definitely like to, in the follow-up, we can talk about the event. We can go into a bit more detail and very much from the CXO lab kind of community side of things, we'd love to delve into how you can help startups utilize Keboola, right? So they can take it in from a very early stage of an organization. Obviously, that will talk to our very senior kind of fractional Cs that we've got and our founders and the C level to go and look at it as a tool and a technology that they could implement too. So it'd be great to look at it from that side of things, but we can delve into that one.
I just want to come to the event to find out why you came up with the word Keboola and if it means anything in Czech and why a massive octopus. I get the tentacle thing. Why gigantic blue octopus? And on my little architecture diagram you saw, I generated with DALL-E a little octopus tile for an icon. Very cute. But we'll have to see that for another episode, I think.
Yeah, it's cute.
So anybody, if you've enjoyed this episode and you don't have to be in the UK, but if you want to find out about automation and AI and more about Keboola, obviously you can listen to future episodes of the Digimasters podcast, or you can actually come in person and meet all of us. I think it's at the Oxo Tower on South Bank in London on the 28th of February, but you must register. And so link will be in the description or on the social media posts. So do register and do come along and meet us. Anyway, thank you again to both my guests. Well, Rob doesn't feel like a guest anymore. He's like part of the furniture. But literally stuck in that chair now, Pavel. And we'll talk to you very soon. But thank you again for coming on the Digimasters podcast. And we look forward to finding out tons more and speaking to you again soon. Hope you enjoyed yourself.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation. It's been a real pleasure. I know we scheduled this for so much shorter time, but you guys have such a great questions that we could do this for hours. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the Digimasters podcast. Be sure to also listen to our sister podcast channel, Digimasters Shorts, a daily podcast covering all the latest news in AI, technology, and business. Remember to follow our podcasts and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. You can follow us on Instagram at Digimasters Shorts or search for Digimasters on LinkedIn and Facebook. You can also email us at podcast@digimasters.co.uk.